Before there were books, before temples, before even language, there was the sky. It was the first thing every human being saw at birth, the last thing they looked to before death, and the great, silent witness to everything in between. The stars were the first text humanity ever read. Long before ink touched papyrus, before laws were carved in stone, civilizations across the globe looked up and saw stories written in light. They saw patterns, they saw cycles, they saw a kind of order, far greater than anything they saw on earth. And from this order, they drew meaning, they drew time, they drew destiny. The sky became their calendar, their compass, their oracle, but more than that, it became their teacher. The Babylonians watched the stars to understand empires and omens. The Maya built entire civilizations around celestial mathematics. The Egyptians aligned their temples to stellar risings. Believing stars carried the soul to the afterlife. In Australia, Aboriginal peoples told cosmic dreamtime stories. Encoded in constellations, the Dogon of Mali mapped stars scientifically unseen for centuries and yet knew them by memory. None of these cultures were in contact, none had the internet, and yet they all said the same thing. Look to the stars and you will remember who you are. Why? Because the sky was not just a backdrop, it was a mirror, a reflection of the soul's path, of birth, growth, transformation, and return. They didn't just watch the heavens, they spoke to them. And they listened. When a star appeared or disappeared, it wasn't random, it was prophecy. When the moon shifted, it wasn't just tides, it was emotion, intuition, divine timing. And when planets aligned, it wasn't science fiction, it was a cosmic conversation. The ancients didn't see the sky as separate, they saw it as a living text, and themselves as part of it. The stars weren't just above, the stars were within. So before we ask why ancient civilizations spoke of the stars, we must remember, they weren't speaking of the stars, they were speaking through them. There is an ancient phrase whispered through temples, carved into stone, hidden in scrolls. As above, so below. As within, so without. These are not poetic metaphors. They are universal laws. To the ancients, the stars were not just decorations in the sky, they were the blueprint of all life on earth. They saw the heavens as a reflection of the earthly realm, and the earthly realm as a projection of the heavens. Every star was a symbol, every planet a force, every constellation a story, unfolding in time and within us. In Egypt, priests believed that every movement in the heavens had a counterpart in the human body. The 12 zodiac signs were reflected in the 12 parts of the body. The Nile was said to mirror the Milky Way, and the human spine was seen as a microcosm of the celestial axis. The Vedic seers of India mapped out the chakras as planetary resonances within the energy body, each center aligned to a celestial frequency, a vibration from the stars echoing through human form. The Incas built their sacred cities to match constellations. The Chinese wove medicine and government alike through the patterns of the stars. The Greeks taught that the soul, after death, would travel through the 7 planetary spheres before returning to Source. Why? Because they knew what modern minds are only beginning to rediscover. The sky is not above us. The sky is within us, and it has always been. When ancient mystics studied the stars, they weren't studying astronomy. They were studying self-awareness on a cosmic scale. They saw that the same patterns that govern the orbits of planets also govern the cycles of nature, of emotion, of life itself. Birth, growth, death, rebirth, like the moon, like the sun, like the soul. And so, to know the stars was to know the self. To track Venus was to learn about love. To follow Saturn was to understand karma. To observe Mercury was to master thought and speech. The sky wasn't out there. It was a living map of consciousness. This is why every major ancient civilization, from the Mayans to the Mesopotamians, obsessed over celestial patterns. Because those patterns didn't just forecast harvests, they revealed something deeper. Your place in the universal rhythm, your alignment with destiny, your reflection in the divine order. So when they said, "As above, so below," they weren't looking up in awe. They were remembering what lived inside them all along. If you want to know what a civilization worshipped, look at what they built to last. And what the ancients built, they aligned to the sky. Across continents, across centuries, and without contact, ancient cultures raised stone, earth, and metal to mirror the heavens. These weren't random placements. These weren't aesthetic choices. They were mathematical, symbolic, and deeply cosmic. Let's begin in Egypt. The Great Pyramids of Giza are not just impressive tombs. They are star maps carved in stone. The three pyramids align almost perfectly with the three stars of Orion's belt, a configuration that wasn't just beautiful, but intentional, matching celestial events from 10,500 BCE. Why Orion? Because the ancient Egyptians believed that Orion was the home of Osiris, the god of resurrection and the afterlife. To align their dead with Orion was to guide them back to the source of their soul. Now shift your gaze to Mesoamerica. The Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza in modern-day Mexico was constructed to interact with the sun. On the equinoxes, the light casts a perfect shadow along the temple steps, creating the illusion of a serpent descending from the heavens, symbolizing Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god of celestial knowledge. Coincidence? Not when you realize this alignment is so precise. It occurs only twice a year, and only when the temple is built with absolute astronomical precision. In Stonehenge, the stones align to the solstices, marking the longest and shortest days of the year. In Nabta Playa, an even older stone circle in the Sahara, predates Stonehenge and aligns with the rising of Sirius, Egypt's most sacred star. In Cambodia, Angkor Wat is laid out in perfect reflection of the Draco constellation. In Peru, the Nazca lines are vast geoglyphs, some stretching miles, that point to celestial bodies and solstice markers. And then there's Göbekli Tepe, the oldest known temple in the world, 12,000 years old, predating writing, the wheel, even agriculture. And yet, its pillars are etched with celestial symbols, its placement aligned with the stars of the Cygnus constellation. All of these structures, different languages, different eras, different myths, but the same message. Build on earth what reflects heaven. They didn't just worship the stars, they built with them, through them, for them. Because to the ancients, architecture was not just a matter of shelter, it was sacred alignment. These monuments were instruments not for survival but for resonance, for tuning human consciousness to cosmic harmony. To stand inside these places is to feel something ancient stir, a shift in energy, a whisper of remembrance. Because these weren't just sights, they were portals between above and below, between time and eternity. And they remind us that the ancients didn't just observe the cosmos, they lived in relationship with it. Long before astrology became a horoscope in a magazine, it was a sacred science, a map not just of time, but of the soul. Every ancient civilization had some form of zodiac, a circle of signs, symbols, and seasons drawn from the movement of stars and planets. And strangely, or perhaps not so strangely, many of these systems mirror each other with uncanny precision. The Babylonians first formalized the 12-sign zodiac, but the same idea exists in Egyptian decans, the Chinese animal cycle, the Vedic nakshatras, the Mayan long count, and even Druidic lunar calendars. How could cultures spread across the world with no contact describe the sky using nearly the same framework? Because the zodiac wasn't invented, it was remembered. Remembered by people who listened to the sky as if it were speaking directly to them. And it was. The ancients believed the zodiac wasn't just a timekeeper, it was a cosmic mirror. Each sign wasn't merely about personality traits, but about initiation. 12 archetypes, 12 lessons, 12 paths through which consciousness must pass to evolve. Asterisk Aries was not just boldness, it was the fire of new beginnings. Asterisk Taurus wasn't just stubborn, it was the grounding of divine creation. Asterisk Gemini wasn't just communication, it was the sacred dance of duality. Asterisk Cancer wasn't just emotion, it was the memory of the mother and the moon. And so on, around the wheel. The zodiac wheel was a spiral, a cosmic curriculum of the soul. It taught that we are born under the stars, but we are meant to rise through them. To the Egyptians, the zodiac was so sacred they carved it into temple ceilings like the Dendera zodiac, a map not just of stars, but of initiation through time, myth, and personal power. To the Greeks, especially Pythagoreans and Neoplatonists, each zodiac sign represented vibrations and soul tones, keys in the music of the spheres. To the Vedic rishis, your birth chart was not your destiny, but your karma laid bare, a map of what your soul came here to resolve, remember, and reclaim. The stars didn't control you. They simply revealed where you are in the journey. So why did ancient civilizations always speak of the stars? Because when they spoke of constellations, they weren't describing distant balls of gas. They were describing you, your path, your shadow, your gifts, your challenges, your cycles. And to know the stars was to decode your inner sky. You weren't just born under a sign, you were born from the stars themselves. And the zodiac, that ancient circle above your head, was never meant to tell you what to expect. It was meant to remind you what you already are. Nearly every ancient civilization has a myth that sounds like this. The gods came from the sky. They came in fire. They came in light. They descended in ships, in spheres, in wheels of fire. They taught language, agriculture, astronomy, law. They brought order, or sometimes chaos. But always, they came from above. The ancient Sumerians told of the Anunnaki beings who descended from the stars to shape humanity. Their name means those who came from the heavens. The Dogon people of Mali spoke of beings from Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, yet somehow known to them with stunning accuracy centuries ago. The Hopi told of the Kachinas, ancestral spirits from the stars who visited and guided humanity before withdrawing into the heavens again. The ancient Egyptians described the Neteru, divine intelligences, often depicted with animal heads and cosmic associations. Many texts describe them descending from Orion and Sirius. The Hindu Vedas speak of Vimana's celestial vehicles flown by gods and sages. They describe aerial battles, advanced craft, and interplanetary travel in texts written over 3,000 years ago. The Mayans believed their knowledge came from sky people. The stars themselves were not just symbols but entities. and the Book of Enoch, an ancient Judeo-Christian text buried for centuries, tells of the Watcher's angels who descended to earth, took human wives, and birthed the Nephilim. Why do these stories echo the same image? Beings from the stars, descending, teaching, leaving. Are these just myths or memories? Modern thinkers like Carl Jung called these stories archetypal imprints, symbols of transformation and higher consciousness. Others suggest they are remnants of actual encounters, contacts with beings from other star systems, dimensions, or even our own future. And perhaps both are true. Because to the ancients, the divide between God and star was non-existent. The stars were alive, and the beings within them were messengers. They were not aliens. They were elders, memory holders, frequency keepers, and sometimes disruptors. The question isn't whether they were real by modern scientific standards. The question is, why did every ancient culture remember them as real? Perhaps because something in our blood remembers them, not as visitors, but as our origin. What if these weren't beings that came to Earth, but beings we once were and may become again? The ancients didn't speak of the stars to fantasize. They spoke of them because they believed we came from them. And perhaps, on some deep soul level, we believe it too. In the ancient world, the stars weren't just points of light. They were gates, and your soul, it came through them. Birth was not the beginning. It was an arrival. Across multiple civilizations, Egyptian, Vedic, Hermetic, and Gnostic, there is a recurring belief. Before entering this physical life, the soul journeyed through the stars. Each planet, each constellation, each sphere was not just a space in the sky, but a stage of spiritual refinement. In Hermetic philosophy, the soul descended through the 7 planetary spheres. 1. Saturn. 2. Jupiter. 3. Mars. 4. Sunday. 5. Venus. 6. Mercury. 7. Moon. Each step downward gave the soul a gift or a veil: structure, ambition, desire, ego, pleasure, intellect, and emotion. And upon death, the soul would return, ascending again through the same planetary gates, stripping away each layer one by one until it reached the source, the divine light. This is why the planets were not just celestial bodies. They were guardians, teachers, refiners of spirit. To the Vedic sages, the Navagraha, the 9 planetary forces, were deities with specific karmic functions. They shaped not just events, but the evolution of the soul across lifetimes. In Egyptian mysticism, the star Sirius was sacred. They believed the soul traveled from Sirius, passed through Orion, the domain of Osiris, and was then born into physical form. Even in Plato's teachings, the soul was said to originate from the stars, choosing its life path before descending into matter, and after death, it returned to its star of origin. The soul is immortal, Plato wrote, and after death it returns to the heavens where it came from. Why were the stars so central to this process? Because they were seen not as far away, but as internal codes. The cosmos wasn't separate from the soul. The cosmos was the soul's roadmap. Astrology wasn't fortune-telling. It was a way to trace the unique pattern of your consciousness. Your birth chart wasn't a personality quiz. It was a celestial fingerprint, the vibration of the sky, the moment you chose to return. And that moment was not random. It was chosen, soul to star. You came in under a specific alignment because it resonated with the lesson your soul came to master. To know the stars, then, was to remember your origin. and to study them was not about prediction but remembrance. That's why initiates in mystery schools studied astronomy and astrology side by side. To understand the stars was to understand the path home. So when the ancients said, "Look to the stars," they didn't mean just look upward. They meant, look inward. Follow the stars back to yourself. There's a secret that runs through the heart of ancient temples, myths, and star maps. A hidden thread whispered in symbols, carved in stone, and echoed in sacred geometry. The stars were not just destinations, they were doorways. Across civilizations, you'll find references to what we now call stargates, gateways, that allowed passage between worlds, between dimensions, between forms of consciousness. Not metaphorical gates, actual technologies of transition encoded into the design of temples, aligned to the stars, activated by sound, frequency, and intent. Let's begin where mystery runs deep. Ancient Egypt. The temples at Abydos, Karnak, and Luxor weren't just places of ritual. They were frequency chambers, constructed with harmonic ratios, aligned with stellar risings like Sirius and Orion. Many of these temples have chambers that amplify sound, suggesting that vibration itself was a key to unlocking energetic thresholds. Was sound tuned to the right frequency, the ancient access code to the stars? In the Great Pyramid, the king's chamber is built with quartz-infused granite, which reacts to sound waves. No hieroglyphs, no decoration, just resonance. This wasn't for ceremony, it was for activation. Now journey to Sumer, where the gods came from, the gate of the gods, or Duat, a portal between the earth and the heavens. In India, the ancient texts speak of vimanas, flying chariots used by celestial beings. These weren't stories of dreams, they were blueprints, with descriptions of propulsion, magnetism, and aerial travel between Loca's spiritual worlds mapped in the stars. In Mesoamerica, the Mayans built observatories precisely aligned to celestial events. They tracked Venus not for agriculture, but because Venus was seen as a messenger between realms. Many temples, such as those in Palenque, contain sarcophagus lids with artwork interpreted as astronaut-like beings in ships pointed toward the heavens. Coincidence? Or suppressed science? What if these weren't metaphors at all? What if they were instructions? Modern researchers have begun to find resonance chambers, magnetic anomalies, and star-aligned tunnels beneath sacred sites around the world. Why? Because the ancients understood something we've forgotten. The universe is not made of things, it's made of frequencies, and the right frequency can open a path between dimensions. This is the secret behind stargates. Not machines like in science fiction, but harmonized structures using geometry, vibration, intention, and stellar alignment. These were technologies of consciousness. They didn't just take your body, they took your awareness to other realms, timelines, lives. And the stars? They were the coordinates. Not just lights in the sky, but living nodes in a multi-dimensional network. We think of the stars as distant. But what if they're closer than we think, not in distance, but in vibration? The ancient initiates knew this. That's why their monuments aligned perfectly with stellar events, solstices, equinoxes, heliacal risings, not for ceremony, but for access. Access to what? To the memory of the soul, to higher dimensions, to the divine. So the next time you see a star, know that to the ancients, it wasn't just a sun far away. It was a door. And some doors don't open with keys. They open when you remember how to knock. If the stars were once seen as sacred, If civilizations built their entire lives around their rhythms, then the real question is not why ancient people spoke of the stars. It's, why did we stop listening? Who took the sky away from us? Because somewhere along the way, what was once sacred science was turned into superstition. What was once known by all was locked away behind institutions, dogma, and ridicule. And the question is, was it by accident? Or by design? When empire replaced tribe and church replaced mystery school, something profound was lost. The sky was no longer a mirror, it became a ceiling. The stars were no longer guides, they became decorations. The infinite became forbidden. Ancient teachings of astrology were labeled pagan. Initiatory astronomy was called blasphemy. The zodiac was turned into a cartoon, and those who still saw truth in the stars were silenced, burned, exiled, or forced underground. From the burning of the Library of Alexandria to the outlawing of esoteric schools in Europe, from the conquest of star-based cultures like the Mayans and the Dogon, to the sterilized science-only worldview of modernity, the result was the same: disconnection. Disconnection from the sky, disconnection from cycles, disconnection from soul. The night sky, once a source of deep spiritual guidance, was polluted, both literally and energetically. Cities now glow with artificial light, dimming the stars and dimming our memory of them. In school, we are taught the stars are balls of gas, beautiful, perhaps, but meaningless. Coincidences of physics, not carriers of truth. But the ancients didn't believe that, and maybe deep down we don't either. Maybe that's why, when we look at the stars, something stirs. Something ancient, something that remembers. The suppression of star knowledge was never just about astronomy, it was about power. Because those who remember the sky cannot be ruled by the ground. Those who see the stars as family, who know they come from them, who know how to read them, are hard to control. And so the knowledge was buried, branded myth, stripped of meaning, until only fragments remained in temples, in symbols, in our dreams. But fragments are enough, because memory cannot be destroyed, only hidden. And now, that memory is waking up. The stars have never stopped speaking. We just forgot how to listen. Look around. We have more information than ever before. More screens, more signals, more satellites. And yet, we are more disconnected from the earth, from each other, and most of all, from the sky. We no longer sleep by starlight. We sleep under ceilings of blue light and radiation. The stars we once spoke to are now drowned by cities. The sky that once told stories is now barely noticed. We live inside a simulation of light while forgetting the source of real light above us. Children grow up never seeing the Milky Way. Many don't even know what the constellations are. The zodiac is considered a joke. Astrology is mocked as entertainment. And those who still feel a connection to the bruising stars are seen as woo-woo, irrational, or lost in fantasy. But let's ask something deeper. Is it really irrational to feel that the stars matter? Or is it madness to believe that we are alone on a random rock in an unconscious universe? Modern science tells us the stars are just burning gas, but the ancients said they are alive. And maybe that's why we feel so numb now. Not because life is meaningless, but because we've been cut off from its cosmic context. We've replaced sky watching with doom scrolling, sacred time with standardized time, lunar rhythms with fluorescent schedules. We've forgotten the wisdom of seasons, cycles, alignments. And in doing so, we've created a world that moves fast but goes nowhere, that builds machines but forgets meaning. We suffer from a disease the ancients didn't even have a word for: cosmic amnesia. This disconnection shows up everywhere. Asterisk in our sleep, insomnia, irregular rhythms. Asterisk in our mental health, anxiety, depression. Asterisk in our sense of purpose, existential dread, emptiness. Asterisk in our environment, unsustainable cycles, ecological collapse. Why? Because we are trying to live without the map. And the map has always been written in the stars. But here's the truth the system doesn't want us to remember. You don't need a telescope to reconnect. You need awareness. You don't have to leave the city. You just have to look up with reverence again. You don't need to be an astronomer. You need to be a listener. Because the stars never stopped singing. They just went quiet when we stopped believing we could hear them. What if the stars were never truly above us, but within us all along? What if every constellation you've ever seen, every shimmer of light, every alignment, every eclipse was not just happening in the heavens, but unfolding inside your own consciousness? The ancients knew to know the sky was to know the soul. They did not worship the stars as gods. They honored them as mirrors. They mapped their temples to the sky because they understood the sky was also a temple, a sacred chamber we carry in our awareness. In Hermetic teachings, the human body was the microcosm of the macrocosm. The brain mirrored the heavens. The pineal gland mirrored the eye of Horus. The spine mirrored the celestial axis. The chakras mirrored the planets. The heart mirrored the sun. This was not poetry, it was cosmic anatomy. When you look up at the stars, you are not looking at something foreign. You are looking at a memory, a reflection of where you came from and where you are going. You are the stardust that became aware of itself. The breath of galaxies formed into form. The soul doesn't just descend from the stars, it is the stars. And the sky is not a destination to reach, it's a frequency to embody. So what does it mean to remember the sky within? It means living by cycles, not deadlines, by rhythm, not rush. It means aligning your energy with the moon, the seasons, the sun. It means seeing your thoughts as planetary, your emotions as tidal, your intuition as solar wind. It means slowing down enough to hear the quiet voice that says, "You've been here before. You've always known. You are not separate from the stars. You are made of them." And in that moment, the distance between you and the cosmos disappears. Because there never was a distance, only a forgetting. But now, you are remembering. And in that remembrance, a new kind of vision is born. One that doesn't just see stars in the sky, but sees a sky inside the soul. A universe not made of objects, but of meaning. And you? You are a constellation yet to be fully drawn, a living star map waiting to shine through form. So look up, and also look in, because the same stars that guided the ancients still live in you, and they always have.